Joining us now, part of the Rebel Alliance, is State Senator from the 36th District in Fairfax. Carly Fiorina is one of his constituents. He always tries to knock on her door, but he can't get through the gate. And he's joining us now, Senator Surovell. Great to have you.
Hey, John. Thanks for having me today. We gotta look at. I'll stick with the ad, but my aides asked me a very deep question the other day, which is what color lightsaber should I have? And I haven't figured that out yet. I'm really struggling with it.
It's okay. Let me solve this for you. It's Valentine's Day. Red.
I don't think so. I mean, we did use the Imperial March for the music for the ad, but I can't go with red. That's just not. That doesn't give me good vibes.
Yeah, but it is Valentine's Day, and so everything should be red. Roses.
I'm wearing my red blazer.
Did you get roses for your wife?
I will on the way home, but right now I'm wearing my red blazer because it's Valentine's Day. I always wear my red blazer on the floor on Valentine's Day. So
very nice, Scott. Very, 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 very nice. Well, I'm sure you've got something planned for your lovely bride when you get home. I'm going home today. I've been out 19 days, so I got something planned also. So anyway, good to have you. 60. You put in 60 bills. How is it even physically possible?
I put in 60 bills 2 years ago, but I put in 63 this time.
Oh my goodness, 63.
Yeah, but I had a lot more drafted. A bunch of members are carrying the other bills that I had prepared. Jim Worsey's actually carrying a few for me, and it's not. I always get a lot of ideas. So.
All right, so I want to get to some of them here. There's a lot to talk about today, and one of the first things I want to talk about is one of your bills you've been working on for some time, which is hands-free calling in Virginia. Where are we with that?
We passed pretty close bills out of the House and Senate. There's some slight differences that don't have anything to do with the hands-free part. They have to do with like the information campaign that'll take place afterwards. But I think it's going to pass this year. Last few years, it's gotten hung up in a conference committee because some of the more conservative members sort of thought it was it was a slippery slope to making it illegal to eat food in a car or change the radio in a car or put on your makeup in a car. But I think this year it's going to pass. I mean, it came out of the Senate 30-10, 35-5, something like that. So I think it's going to pass this year.
Okay, let me just read a text by your chief of staff here, Philip, who just sent me. He said almost everything you just said about with McDougal on renewable energy a couple of minutes ago was wrong. But anyway, the vote on McDougal's amendments was party line. He got no Democrats to back it. He said he had one. McDougal was just on complaining about the fact that this company, LS Power in Bath County and Hanover, has to pay this $45 million because of the Reggie thing. You voted no on giving them relief for that. Why?
I'm trying to remember that floor debate, but my recollection is that LS Power. Oh, okay, I remember this debate now. Okay, LS Power is like a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and my recollection is that McDougal and Donovan complained that this company had made a bunch of contracts for 3 years and that they didn't know this was going to happen, which is kind of preposterous given the government call-up is the one that tried to put us in Reggie. And the idea that a big company like this didn't have the foresight to build something into their contract to deal with the constituency, to deal with the possibility that this was going to happen is preposterous. I mean, big companies like this think about these contingencies. They build it into their contracts. Maybe to me, they maybe have a good case of malpractice against their lawyers. But sorry, I'm at McDonald's right now.
That's okay, Senator. Take your time.
But the fact that they should have had it in the contract, and if they didn't, they should sue their lawyers. That's kind of where I came from on this.
All right, so but the I know McAuliffe got us involved in Reggie, but what does that really do for Virginia? Like, if you're a consumer, I don't want to take too much time on it, but I've been just trying to figure this out. If I'm just a consumer in Virginia and I live in Hanover, Bath County, or Chesapeake, where I do, what is being part of Reggie? What is that? How does that benefit me? What does that do for me? Can you explain that?
Well, John, we've been making electricity now without considering the cost of carbon for 100 years, and part of the reason that we're in the pickle we are now with these pandemics, or with the sea going up, or with the the speech I gave on the floor says we're going to have malaria, because these mosquitoes are going to be moving north pretty soon. Mm-hmm. We're going to have we're going to have the weather of Central America pretty soon, with tropical rainforest in Virginia, and we have to start dealing with this. RGGI incentivizes our utilities. It gives them more flexibility in terms of being able to use carbon. If Dominion wants to keep using carbon, they can buy that. They can buy the ability to do that from other states. If other states are moving faster on renewable energy than us, RGGI was basically a Republican idea. President George H.W. Bush, I think, is the first one who asserted the idea of carbon trading to give states the flexibility to pollute if they want to pollute, while other states wanted to go green if they wanted to. And so, it just, from my perspective, it just builds more flexibility into our system.
Well, it also reinforces the point that I've made for a decade, which is George W. Bush is the worst president in the history of America, bar none, and will go down in history as such.
I'm talking about his dad. His dad is the one that proposed this back in
his
early
father
90s.
was no better. His father was no better. So I'm not a fan of either of them. But look, I think I understand. There's the whole trade-off thing, but it seems like this one company, either they didn't prepare for it or they're getting screwed, but at the end of the day, it's affecting consumers. All right, let's move off that. Let's get to casino gambling, and specifically, let's get to Northern Virginia. I want to talk about this, the Dumfries referendum. You want a casino there. Other people are opposed to it. If you do get it, who's going to be awarded the license? MGM is in there trying to obtain it, but first of all, MGM is trying to stop it because they want to keep sucking the money out of Northern Virginia, so it goes to Maryland. How do you combat this? Because they have a whole plan going on. They got homeowners associations involved. This thing is a complete ruse.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty impressed how up on it you are.
Thank you.
The town of Dumfries was, it's actually the oldest town in Virginia. It dates back to the early 1600s, and it was actually at one point bigger than New York City before they silted their port in after they, grew so much tobacco. But the town of Dumfries isn't really known for a lot today. It's sort of a exit off of I-95, and it's congested like crazy, especially when I-95 backs up. And the town started talking with Colonial Downs about building a Rosie's there, and the voters approved it by referendum 60-40 this November. And
right,
the problem with the situation with Colonial Downs more broadly is complicated, because we told them 2 years ago, come into the state, bring back horse racing, set up these Rosie's parlors to build your purses. We will let you come to the state and be the only operator of these slot parlors in the various locations. And then 2 years later, after they come in and invest $90 million, we tell them, oh, by the way, we're just going to put 5 casinos really close. Don't worry about it. And according to the JLARC report, that means they're going to lose about 40% of their revenue.
Right.
And, we can't just cut a casino deal like this and just leave them hanging. And so they've said in order to make up for the 40% revenue loss they're likely to suffer, they need to expand the operation further. And one of the places they'd like to expand it is in Dumfries, where there's going to be no competition from these other casinos in Virginia.
Right.
But what's now happened, though, is that MGM, which sucks $150 million Virginia dollars out of our state every year to fund Maryland schools, is like all of a sudden freaking out because they want to expand the Dumfries operation to 1,800 machines. And now MGM has contacted this homeowners association next to Dumfries, but it's really not the HOA. It's actually a developer who's building 4,500 houses, and the developer still controls the HOA.
Right.
Now they've gotten into the mix, and MGM is starting all these sort of fake grassroots organizations putting stuff out on Facebook and on the internet, claiming that the community is opposed, even though I haven't gotten a single email from a single constituent telling me they have a problem with it. And so this fight has begun, to try and push back on the expansion of these HHR, historical horse racing parlors in Northern Virginia. So that's effectively what the battle, what's going on at the battlefield right now.
Well, sure.
When
You have
what happens.
you have Colonial Downs that invested $300 million total in
300
Virginia.
million, okay.
$300 million. They took they took a shuttered race track, revitalized it, opened it. They said they'd get to 30 racing dates. First year they had 15. This year they have 18. That's an entire industry. That's blacksmiths. That's feed. That's the entire equine industry. They revitalized that in Virginia. It's a money loser for them. They're employing 1,000 people with a minimum of $15 an hour wage. So you have 1,000 Virginians have jobs. They get the referendum passed in Dumfries, and now you got MGM, who has been sucking money out of Virginia. Colonial Downs put money, $300 million in Virginia. All they do is suck money out, and now they have a stealth fake campaign with homeowners associations and developers saying we don't want casinos there. Why? Because they want to keep getting our Virginians to drive to MGM, go over the Maryland Harbor Bridge, and go to the MGM casino. 50% of the people there live in Virginia every single day, and so they want to keep sucking the money out of Virginia. The other company has put money into Virginia. How the hell does that work?
Yep. You pretty much nailed it. I mean, I can actually I could actually jog to the MGM casino from my house. It's so close to where I live.
Exactly.
And, you go over to the parking deck there, and, every other car in the parking deck is a Virginia car. And Maryland built it there because they didn't think Virginia was going to legalize gambling anytime soon. And they put it there to suck money out. And,
sure.
Part of the reason we're doing these casinos statewide is that right now we're losing Virginia money to Maryland. The 2 or 3 Maryland casinos that are closed, we're losing it to Charleston,
Dover, Delaware.
Yep, right. Dover. I think there might be one in Tennessee. I can't remember, but
yeah, there is. But I tell you what, the last time I've been to all of them, and I've said this on the radio 100 times. You go to MGM on any given night, half the cars have Virginia plates on them. The last time I went to Charlestown in West Virginia with Ann, I couldn't find a West Virginia plate. They didn't have any. They're all coming from Virginia, and you go to Delaware, and there's probably about 35%. So they're sucking all this money out. It doesn't make any sense. And now MGM basically comes in the state, and then here's what pisses me off is if you want to come in, make your case, be legitimate. But they're coming in, Scott Surovell, under the table with all these fake bots and stuff, riling people up. They already voted for it 60-40. It's all a ploy to keep our money getting sucked out and into the People's Republic of Maryland. So I'm glad that you're fighting on it. Let's get to bookmaking gambling. I know that Mark Sickles has got a bill in the House to just make it mobile, maybe award 10 licenses or something. Where do we stand on it?
Yeah, I haven't paid any attention to the bills coming out of the House yet because we're just starting to see them right now after crossover. But I know that sports bet. You're talking about sports betting, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we need to do something about sports betting. The Supreme Court said it was okay for states to regulate it about a year ago.
Right.
So right now there's a land rush going on. Every state is trying to set up a system so that, again, we don't have Virginians, spending money in Maryland or West Virginia or North Carolina, doing this. And I think online is probably the better way to go rather than brick and mortar. But I just think that's more realistic in today's world, how people are going to do this. I know there's some talk about some tie between possibly the Redskins moving a stadium here and doing it, having having some kind of a betting facility in the stadium. There's some stuff we have to work. If we do that, we have to work through some stuff on that.
Well, look, I think that makes sense. But your bill in the Senate, I think, is being carried by your colleague Jeremy McPike. He's got the book bill. It's mobile only. It allows college sports. In all due respect to our friend Chap Peterson, I love Chap to death. But trying to tie this to brick and mortar, I mean, that's what my father did in the 1970s. He went to the OTB down the road. I mean, come on, man. It's 2020. You got to be able to bet on your phone. all the money that's generated, the big part of the money that's generated now from gambling is online in-game betting. If you're betting baseball, is he going to get a hit? Is he going to hit a fly ball? Is it going to be a strike? I mean, that's where the millennials go to have this thing where you have to go to a bookmaking outfit and go in the door, ring the bell. I mean, come on, man. That's like so ridiculous. I mean, I love Chap to death, but it doesn't make any sense at all. It ought to be mobile.
Right.
So let me just, I got a text here from one of my listeners back to Reggie who said, Dominion amended themselves into the bill to pass through the cost of consumers, and no Democrat had a problem with that. What's the difference between that, Dominion doing that, and this other company?
So this other company, the one you mentioned earlier, I think they're an independent power producer, so I think they generate electricity and then they sell it to other utilities or other users of the system. They're not. Maybe they do sell some to Dominion, but I think they have some long-term contracts with somebody, and I don't know who they are. Whether it's maybe it's Newport News Shipbuilding or maybe it's somebody up north. I really have no idea. But a lot of times these companies will come in and they'll put a power plant in Virginia that's close to a transmission line, and they'll generate electricity and sell it somewhere within the PJM network, which is basically the East Coast and sort of north of North Carolina, north and west or east of Ohio or something. Anyway, and that situation is different from what Dominion is. Dominion is a monopoly, a state-sanctioned monopoly utility provider to end users in Virginia. So Dominion might buy electricity from this company, but what Dominion does is Dominion makes electricity for Virginians and North Carolinians. And the way a regulated monopoly works is if they have costs, they're typically passed through to consumers. That's just how a regulated monopoly works. So,
all right. Thanks for that clarification. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network. We're with State Senator Scott Surovell, District 36, Northern Virginia, Fairfax. Senator, so you got 63 bills that you personally sponsored. Then you have many that are being carried by others, like you mentioned. As you go in here to just past crossover, give me your top three objectives, top three things that you want to get past, so that when the gavel hits and you go home, you can say to yourself, okay, I got my top three things done. What are they?
Well, personally, I have one which I know is probably controversial to a lot of your listeners, but it has to do with driving permits for people who are undocumented. And, that, again, I'm sure a lot of your listeners have questions about that, but 23% of my district is Latino. About 1 in 4 people I represent was born in another country. Right now, they can't get a license. There's 17 other states, including some conservative states, that have done this. And the bill that's before the House right now basically puts a notice at the top of the one-year card that says you can't use this for voting, for public benefits, or to get in a federal building. You can't use it to get on an airplane. And it's a privilege card that's only available to people who are undocumented. And if people want to come and identify themselves to the Commonwealth, put themselves on a list, and get driving privilege, I don't see a big problem with that. That's probably number one. I have some criminal reform bills. The biggest one is probably a bill that allows a judge to, after finding somebody guilty, continue and defer a charge for either dismissal or reduction to another charge. Right now, a judge, if they find there's sufficient evidence to convict you, they have to convict you of whatever you've been charged with. And I think the prosecutors and the judges need more discretion and flexibility in order to deal with situations appropriately. Because even though somebody might be guilty, it's not always like the worst crime they've ever seen of that particular crime. Even some felonies are like that. So that's a big bill I've got out there that's being considered. And I have another bill that would authorize class action lawsuits. And again, a lot of people are like, well, why do we need those? Well, 48 other states authorize class action lawsuits at the state level. And if you don't have that kind of remedy available, corporations can steal money from people at $5 a hit, and nobody ever sues over it because it's not economical. And so I think people ought to be able to sort of pool their cases in order to be able to get a settlement.
I'm in total favor of that, because that essentially becomes a de facto Consumer Protection Act.
Right.
So I'm in favor of that, and so I think that makes sense. Justice reform. When can we get a bill to get rid of cash bail?
There's a few bills that were introduced to look at that, and I believe they're all being sent to the Crime Commission for study out of the House. We didn't really have many out of the Senate. It's a complicated issue, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that many of our localities don't have the resources in place to be able to monitor people if you don't give them cash bail.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, for example, in Fairfax County, we have a very robust, locally funded pre-trial diversion network where, we have staff that are able to monitor people and make sure that they're complying with conditions if they're not being incarcerated. Mm-hmm. In a lot of the more rural localities where they don't have the same resources we do in Northern Virginia, they don't have that in place and the state doesn't fund it. And so a lot of times the judges feel like we have to effectively privatize that monitoring by using the cash bail system. And there's obviously some bad consequences of that. But I think, at least our majority, the majority caucuses right now want to take a look at that, but I'm not sure you can entirely fix it without putting more cash into the system to be able to hire people to monitor people in lieu of giving them a cash bond. So I think we'll probably look at that over the next 12 months, and maybe next session you'll see some action on that.
All right, I got a text here from Eugene in Chesterfield. He says, can you ask the senator, will his driver's licenses, provisional, if you will, for those that are in the country illegally, right? They should be here in the first place. Will they indicate clearly that they can't vote?
Yeah. The statute specifically says that in a box at the top, it says not for voting. And the code also specifically says it amends the voting statute that says that, that they can't use that particular credential they can't show that at the polls, or the poll workers are supposed to not accept that.
As their ID to
yeah,
vote.
I want to just warn you, though, a lot of people in my caucus, including myself, would like to have people get a regular, non-real ID driver's license. But right now, we haven't been able to get the votes together to get that through, and I'm not sure we're going to get there. This is the compromise vote, and the benefit I have to wrap. But the benefit what's the benefit to a Virginia resident who's here illegal, that went through the system, either was born here or is here legally, and now you got people that are not here legally. I call them illegals. You call them undocumented, whatever. That's fine. What is the benefit to me of this? How does this help? How does this help me and my family? Well, on the credential that I'm proposing, they have to show that they've paid Virginia income taxes. You're going to have a lot more people paying income taxes, number one. Number two, they're going to be paying about $20 million more into the DMV and licensing fees and car title registration fees. Number three, they have to show their car is insured so that they're going to be paying Virginia auto insurance premium taxes. So you're going to see more tax revenue out of that. You're going to have a bunch more people who know the rules of the road. Right now, people come here and they don't know what the signs or the stripes on the road mean, or when they're supposed to stop, or when they can take a right turn. So you're going to see lower accidents, which they've seen in other states. You're also going to see fewer hit and runs. And also, people are much more likely to interact with law enforcement when there's a crime, whether they're a witness or they've seen something or they want to call the police. Or, people are just more likely to engage in society if they've got credentials. That's been the experience in the other 17 states that have done that.
All right, here's I have to go, but I just got a text here from Ben Knotts, Legislative Director for Americans for Prosperity, who is with you on this, who says, if they don't have a license, they don't have insurance, and it's a Virginian with a license gets into an accident with those the illegal without a license, then they foot the bill because the other person doesn't have insurance. So therefore, what Scott says makes sense. So there you go.
Yeah. I'm glad to have their help.
When you've got Americans for Prosperity texting in, liking what you're doing, I think that's a pretty good sign, Scott. Thank you.
Yeah, we have bipartisan support. There's 2 Republican legislators who are supporting the privilege code, not the license privilege code.
Who? Who are the 2?
Senator Ralph Bloxham has been carrying it with us for 4 years, and Senator Emmett Hanger voted for the bill on the floor.
All right, I got to roll. Scott Surovell, Democrat, State Senator, Fairfax. In Carly Fiorina, in her district, he keeps trying to knock on her door. She will not open the gate. Carly, open a gate for Scott. Scott, thanks for being with us.
No problem. It's been a pleasure, John.